In the 90s, the media made claims that a researcher had found a gay gene, and in fact, a gay gene was not found. Brain studies were done where researchers claimed that the brains of homosexuals were different than the brains of heterosexuals. Brain studies actually don't prove anything about cause because our brains alter according to our experiences.
In many cases, the homosexual attraction is very deep-seated in someone's life, so that as far back as they can remember, they felt different as a little kid. So in their minds, it feels like they're born gay.
In 2008, the American Psychological Association admitted that researchers had never found a biological cause for homosexuality.
Almost all of them that I was dealing with had been abused, or they came out of overbearing authoritarianism, that something was really, really wrong systemically in their family or in their background.
I believe that it was that first level of rejection of losing my mom, as well as my father giving me away, that opened up the door for me to have feelings that I felt different and felt strange.
I was 4 years old. I was sexually molested by a teen. Somehow felt responsible for what had happened. It had involved this older boy having had pornography.
Dad had his own issues. He was dealing with sexual addiction issues and brought some things into the house that I shouldn't have seen. But more importantly, it was the way he looked at women, both my mom and others, as sexual objects. And any time a sign of being a girl came up, I would push it down and push it away, and created quite a boy self.
Researchers have found that change of sexual orientation is possible for some people. One of the things that plays a role for some people who end up with a homosexual orientation is a boy's sense of his own masculinity or a girl's sense of her own femininity.
I was really attracted to masculinity because it was something that I felt so much deficit inside of me. And there was a longing to try to connect with something that I viewed as strong and healthy masculinity.
I really wanted to be those men. I was hungry for their masculinity.
He soaks in femininity at a time when he's craving masculine input.
I had a lot of feminine with my mother and my sister, and that brought a lot of insecurity about who I was as a little boy.
And when he goes on to school around the age of 5 or so, he will often have a hard time connecting with other boys. Either he's just more comfortable with girls because that's what he's known and that's what he's familiar with, and he lacks confidence with the boys, or if he has acquired any feminine mannerisms, he may be rejected by the other boys.
I was teased tremendously in school by my peers. I was rejected. I was made fun of.
I was called sissy. I was called a girl sometimes, and I was excluded from playing with other boys.
They're saying that I'm, a faggot. They're saying that I'm gay. They're saying that I'm a sissy boy. So rather than trying to fight them and say that I'm not, why don't I just be?
The lights went down, when the party was over, when the sex stopped, there was still this terribly empty loneliness in my heart that the clubs could not satisfy, sexual partners could not satisfy, and I kind of felt like many times I was chasing a ghost.
I remember going into a gay disco bar once and seeing the old gay guys lined up at the bar. Nobody wanted them because they'd gotten too old and they'd gotten too ugly. And I remember saying to myself, that's where I'm gonna be in 40 years if I stay with this. I'm gonna be one of those lost and lonely old men drinking themselves into a stupor every night because all of the fame and all of the wealth and all of the adulation they had when they were young and they were beautiful is gone. And that they now realize that nobody ever really did love them.
As I look back, I see that the devil deceived me, and he deceived many, thousands and thousands of others into believing that we could be happy. That's the deception, that this is a happy life. This is a gay life. This is a gay pride. We are happy. None of that is true.
It's obvious that man and woman are designed for sexual coupling. Anatomically and physiologically, it's clear. So that when a male has sex with another man, a male with a male, or a female with a female, it's an obvious indicator of suppressing the truth about the way in which we have been made. Wrong about it is it doesn't conform to the pattern of sexuality that's put forth in Genesis 2:24, that a man lies with a woman, and only a man and a woman become one flesh.
Heard from the Lord, it was very clear. He told me that I had a choice, and that choice was that I could either choose the path that He had for me, or He would give me over to what it was that I was pursuing. One would lead to life, the other would lead to death.
The doctor came in and he said, not only do you have HIV, but you have full-blown AIDS.
It was the early 80s, and there was this outbreak of opportunistic infections with gays. And I remember being in a bar where in the course of a week, 5 of the staff got very sick and were hospitalized, and they all died within about 4 or 5 months.
I joined the Navy and did that for 2 years, where it just gave me the freedom to pursue what I wanted to pursue. Unfortunately, after about 2 years of that, I found out that I was HIV positive.
I came down with about 12 symptoms of what was then thought to be opportunistic infections. And then I had this vision of the Lord, and I didn't know it was the Lord. And so when I said help, I saw this head and shoulders and light shining from behind. And I heard in my spirit, I want to heal your whole person, not just your sexuality.
And I thought, you know, one of these days I'm just going to stop mid-span and jump. And I heard these words come in my mind. And it said, if you're willing to take your life, are you willing to give it to me? And I thought, well, that must be God. And I had known the Lord when I was young. And I heard God say, I want you back. And I thought, you know, my life is a complete disaster. It certainly couldn't be any worse with God. And so I thought, if the Lord wants me, He can have me.
I began to show up, supernaturally in my life. Every service I was out there trying to touch God. A lot of things that I've been through, the abandonment of my father, looking for that fatherly love, looking and seeking in the solace of men, but even being introduced to pornography at a young age and being confused sexual identity. I really didn't know who I was, but I let people brand me and tell me who I was, and I became the person that this world so I could fit in. But the thing is that when I came to Christ, He really put a mirror to me and said, this is who you are. But He also showed me who I was in Christ. Anybody could be excluded, from being too far from God. It certainly would have been me. Jesus was the best thing that ever happened to me. He was everything that I was searching for.
I was so caring and so kind. He didn't preface it with, oh, you disgusting little creature. I can't believe where you've been and what you've done. What He said was, I love you. And then when He said, you don't have to be gay, I felt like 100 pounds of weight had come off of me. It was the answer I didn't know that I was looking for.
Getting to ask Him, how could you love me knowing all that I've done? Because my conception of love was I had to do something for Him to love me. And here He was saying, I love you regardless of what you've done. And I wasn't convinced of that. There was some situations that I had gotten myself involved in when I was in Germany, and it was very degrading type of stuff. And I began to tell Him, I said, don't you remember when I did this? And He stopped me when I was telling, He said to me, but I love you. And I decided that day that I wanted to be in relationship with Him no matter what. I was a new man. I was a new creation. All the old things had passed away, and my life had become new on that day.